to the young, let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance for understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despite wisdom and instruction.
The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Now, 2 weeks ago, we began a new sermon series called Better. Oops, excuse me.
Oh, yeah. World's falling apart.
Okay, there we go. So we all have our aspects of life that we want to see improve and wants to see better. And I hope that every one of you start with something good this year. I'm convinced that living a life with Jesus is the best way to live. And when we submit to Him, our lives are actually become more in order and what He wants us to do. Now, 2 weeks ago, we looked at the impact God can have in our lives when we begin a new year with better priority. So the first week, actually the second week of January, we talked about better priority. Right? When we put God first, the rest of our lives fall into order. Now, if you get this backwards, the most important thing in our lives will suffer. And last week, we discovered that the people we surround our lives and ourselves with, will actually have a far-reaching effect than we ever realized. Sometimes it is important for us to focusing on better relationship, to experience the life that God has for us. Now, today we continue our series and dive into the need for better choices, right? Okay, so first week we talked about better priority. Last week we talked about better relationship. Today we'll talk about better what?
Right.
Choices. Better choices. Okay? Here we go. So when you hear that I'm going to talk about better choices, you might just poke somebody next to you and say, this is something you need to hear, right? Now, before you say things like that, right? Or you think about all the people that will need to hear this message, I mean, we have to also recognize that we all struggle from time to time to make these wise choices and do the right things. So this conversation is actually a very important thing because when we make bad choices, of course we will have bad consequences, but at the same time, we actually open ourselves up to a toxic things that can harm us from inside out. Okay, let me tell you one of the example. I think Ellie knows what this is. Tell me what this is. What is that?
A hot pocket.
Okay, does anybody never taste a hot pocket? Please raise your hand. Whoa, a couple of you. Oh, you never tasted a hot pocket before. Okay, wow, okay, all right. Now, I'll be honest, I used to love this when I was in high school because that's the time I came from South Korea back in 1982. In Korea at the time, we didn't have any pizza. So, I came here and then I saw, what is that thing, right? You can actually microwave less than 2 minutes and you have this warm pizza in your hand, it's melting. Oh my goodness. I used to love it. You still love it, Ellen?
Occasionally.
Occasionally, okay. I tell you what.
They're alright.
They're all right, yes. Now, when I was in medical school, I remember one of my professor, it was actually nutrition class, that actually, he picked on this hot pocket thing. And then he talked about, why this is not a, good, healthy snack, or even substitute for your lunch meal, or even breakfast, because, this one is really fast, right? And can possibly harm us. But, it's very tasty. We consume some of this thing without a second thought, right? And at that time, I didn't realize, it's like, what's in it anyway? What's in this thing? So, as you know, this is a hot pocket. Some of you never, seen this. You probably saw this in your grocery refrigerator when you're shopping with your grandchildren sometimes. But wait until what's in here. Now, this is just a nutrition fact, really simple one, okay? As you can see, one of the most intriguing factor is this, sodium. Sodium has a 630 milligram. Does anybody know what's the American Medical Association recommended doses of sodium per day, adults?
Isn't it 2,000?
Less than that.
1,000.
A little bit over.
1,000.
1,500. 1,500 milligram of sodium is a recommended dosage. But one pocket, not just two, one pocket contains 630 milligrams of sodium. Now, besides that, that's what I'm actually showing you, adult recommended one, right? There's another one. This is a label of a hot pocket, and what is that containing? I don't even know. That little thing has this much stuff in it. We're like, wow. And this is an amazing thing. Do you see this? 12 ingredients banned at Whole Foods.
Wow.
I've never looked at that.
You guys never went to Whole Foods before? You did, right? Okay. Because they're like more
Gotta be a
kind of
chemist to read that thing.
upscale. They try to be more, I think, a natural, those kind of store. And they actually banned some of the 12, things in here. Anyway, I'm not picking up hot pocket. I'm just saying, when we consume something from grocery store or anything, sometimes you have to think about, what's in it? What am I eating? Those kind of things. Because it all relates to better choice, right? So, I'm afraid that without having this kind of proper wisdom in every decision that we make, all of us run the risk of allowing toxic things in our hearts and minds. Now, when I'm talking about toxic things, it means that when we accept those, whatever that is, it actually produces a outcome that is poisonous, that can harm to you and affect the relationship with others as well. We're talking about physically, spiritually, and emotionally as well. Okay? So, much like the things that we consume daily, I suggest some of the choices that we make are actually, better. Better for our spirit, better for our body, and better for our mind and heart. Okay? So, I just want to talk about 3 different things today. Okay? So, what are better choices that we can have? All right? Here we go. First one is this. Let's read this one together, shall we? Okay? Better choices begin with a fear of God. With a fear of God. Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you guys use a water filter at home, drink water?
Yeah.
You do, right? Why do you use a water filter?
So there's no gross water.
Okay. Yeah, there's no funny thing in the water, right? Some of the things that we should not consume, like chlorine, right? All these things in the drinking water. So we use a water filter, so that filter actually filters out all those things that we should not drink it. Make sure it is safe for drinking. So just like that, we must have some kind of filter to protect ourselves from any toxic decision. And that's why we are going to read Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 on our bulletin. Okay? Let's read it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. I don't know about you, but when I was in school, like in LA, when I was in like junior high, high school, my pastor somehow always talk about this. What is it? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So before you take any knowledge, you make sure that you have the fear of the Lord. And at that time, I didn't really understand what that meant. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. What does that mean? What does that mean? Now, it is interesting that the concept of the fear of the God, we do not really understand well as much as love of God. We understand love of God very easily, right? We heard about it, we practiced with it. We always think that God is God of love. That's it. There's no other thing. But we have to think about God is actually God of judgment. God of justice. God of justice. Now, there is actually biblical teaching that why would we fear Him if He loves us? Why we have to fear Him if He loves us, right? And how does that help us in making better choices? So let me just say this clearly. When we say fear of God in the Bible, it's not the fear of God that we are accustomed to. When the Bible talks about fear of God, it means that 2 things. Reverence and respect. That is what that means. Reverence and respect. Do you respect your parents? Yeah, we do, right? We all respect our parents. I'm sure that you guys have someone that you actually honor that person or reverence, that person. I think I'm talking about something like that. So that's the relationship. So when we're talking about relationship between God and us, of course there is a love part, but at the same time, we have to understand that there's a God of creation, right? Almighty supernatural God. But we are fallible, a fallible human. And that's where we begin wisdom in our everyday choices. The evangelist Ray Comfort once says like this: when men don't fear God, they give themselves to evil. When we are given a list of toxic choices that seems like a good choice, at that moment, we sometimes need to have a reason to flee, get out of there. We have to, because that's where we respect and reverence and honor of God appears. Like, for example, you know the story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife, right? I mean, does anybody know that story? Joseph and Potiphar's wife? No one. Okay. Let me see. Let me just explain to you this a little bit. You know that Joseph, he was a sold slave by his brother, right? He got betrayed by his brother, so he sold slave in Egypt. And then Joseph actually, because a God's providence, he actually became a master slave of a Potiphar's house. Potiphar at that time was like Egyptian general soldier. So he was one of the top government officials at that time of Egypt. And Joseph actually became a master slave. That means he became like who are like managing all those slaves and his household. I mean, he became that high as a slave. That was all God's favor. Now, the Potiphar's wife, you have to read in Genesis chapter 38 through 39, is that every day she tried to give a temptation to Joseph, saying, let's just come to my sleeping quarter together, and let's just have a time together. So she always asking Joseph to come to my quarter. Let's spend time together. Let's come to my bed. And Joseph kept refusing day after day. One day, she came really close. She came really close to Joseph, and please, just come to me. It just only takes just a very short time. Your master doesn't have to know. But guess what Joseph did? This is Genesis chapter 39, verse 12. But he, Joseph, left his cloak, his outer clothes, in her hands and ran out of the house. He just ran out of the house because he knew that was not the right thing to do before God. He had fear of God. He had reverence of God. And he had so much respect for God. So he could say, all right, it's just only a couple of seconds. Nobody has to know. Just you and me. But instead, he actually left his cloak. That means like she was really trying to catch him. But he just left his outer cloak and just ran out of the house. Can you imagine that scene? Ran out of the house. And because of that, guess what happened? Joseph went to prison because Potiphar's wife accused him. The other way around. Anyway, so we don't want to make a decision that would lead to negative outcomes that might harm us or others. We receive His discipline in our lives and learn to move from fear to trust, right? From respect God, from reverence God, to honor God. That's not enough. We have to trust God because of that. And all this trust coming from because how much we respect Him. But, it all begins with the fear of God. Okay? So, second one is this. Let's read this one together, shall we? Even a trace of toxin can be harmful. It's up here. Let's read that one more time. Even a trace of toxin can be harmful. Now, sometimes our minds and our hearts are deceiving us, right? Oh, it's okay. It's just a small thing. It's no big deal. So we just dipped our toe and take a taste, and we think that it won't affect us negatively. The problem is that even trace of toxin can be incredibly, yes, harmful. Incredibly harmful for us from inside out. The book of James actually talk about that. So let's read. Let's read James chapter 2 verse 10 on our bulletin together, shall we? For whoever keeps the whole law and just stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. Now, what are we talking about here? What are you talking about here? Now, what is the James saying is this? Now, we are trying to only focusing on certain parts of the law while just discarding all other laws, right? We only focusing one little portion of the Bible and just discarding everything else in the Bible. And that's why we really have to understand what God is saying from Genesis to all the way to Revelation. Not just one portion of it. Not just portion of it. That's why we try to level up the sin of this. We try to level and weigh sin in different measurement. But when we make a choice to break the law of God according to this verse, even in a way that may seem small or insignificant for us, we are actually guilty of just breaking all the law. And that's what actually separates us from God. So, the problem is this. We try to convince ourselves that we can dabble in sin and make it out unscathed. Right? I mean, truth is that sin always takes us further than we want to go. Make us stay longer than we would like. And cost us more than we want to pay. So we must commit better choices. Now, in Korean famous proverb, when I was young, like your age, I always hear from my parents, my pastor, my teacher is saying like this. This is a translation of Korean. A boy who steals a needle grows up to steal a cow. Now I'm trying to figure out what is an idiom in American culture. It's something like this. I don't know whether this is right. If you start out rotten, you will only get worse. Something like that? Or any other things that you recommend? Better translation of it. You know what I mean, Linda, right? I mean, she was like laughing if I'm looking at this. But this is a direct translation of a Korean idiom. Every kids know. Everybody knows it.
Oh, I like that one.
Did this one? Yeah. What does this mean? I mean, by just looking at it, yes.
It means like, if you steal a needle, then like it'll take you too far the sin, and then when you grow up, you'll steal a cow.
That's right.
Because it's even worse.
Yeah, that's even worse, right? So the small sin that you think, oh, just steal, small thing, doesn't matter. If you do not change that habit, what's happening? Later on, you're still a big stuff. Cow. Well, anyway, this is what it, importance of early intervention. This is what we're talking about. Importance of early intervention. Now, let me tell you a little bit my painful history, which was a joke, I think, for some of you. Now, my first experience of smoking. This is what happened. So this is during I think my freshman year, my junior high school. I mean, at that time, all the guys talk about all this, sky thing. And then, one day, we were actually, I think they were discussing it, and we're saying that, I think one of my friends asked everybody, have you guys smoked before? Well, it's like, nobody did. I mean, that's kind of, we can't even buy a cigarette, and then cigarette was not an easy thing to find at that time. And then, he goes, oh, my dad smoked, and I can bring one cigarette, and then let's have just a taste of what it like to do. So, I arranged it. I got really curious, and everybody got so curious. So I found the time that my mom goes to shopping. I know, the time that she spends. Okay, guys, come to, my house at a certain time, and make sure you brought it. So we actually make a little small, like a gathering in our, actually my room, and then he actually brought it. And then it was it was interesting. And then he brought his dad's lighter too. So, we start to sip a little bit, and everybody was choking it, right? It was so bad. I mean, but hey, we feel like we are a man because of that. So, it was really cool. We were all laughing at each other. And this is amazing thing happened. I heard, key was turning and door was off. And I was like, and then she goes, where is my son? Where were you? What are you doing we're in your room? My mom actually came about 30 minutes earlier from her shopping. So, oh my gosh. So, can you imagine that scene? Later on, of course, I learned the lesson very hard. At that time, mom actually spanked me. And then, my dad was, a doctor at that time. So, he was a neurosurgeon, so he was really disappointed. And he told me all this, how the cigarette can damage your lung from all this lecture, type of thing. So, and they actually both cried in front of me. That, I was not a good son that they were raising. So they felt really betrayed because of that. From that moment, I never touched a cigarette in my life. Yeah, I never touched a cigarette. So, here is what I want to tell you. I don't know whether this is applicable to you, Alvin. Importance of early intervention, right? I mean, think about it. A little choice that we can have to visit the website maybe seems not a big deal. A little choice that report a little falsely on our taxes may not seem to be a big deal. A little choice that we have to gossip just a little about that person. Maybe it's not a big deal. But see, all these little choices easily can become a frozen weight or stumbling block to receive a God's blessing for you in your life. So, sin, the purpose of sin is this. Sin always tries to kill you, destroy you, and steal. This is what book of John, chapter 10, verse 10 says. The thief only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that they may have life, abundant life, to the fullest. That's the purpose of what Jesus, or why Jesus came. Okay, third one is this. Let's read third principle together on our TV screen here. Okay? Just because I can, does that mean I should? Just because I can, does not mean I should, right? So when you think of this, we have to think about, our free choice, our free will. It's a blessing that God gave us. God created each one of us having our free will, not like robot, but free will can be a double-edged sword, right? I think one of the things that when I actually learned and heard a lot in America was all about like my right, my right. It's all about, it's my right, those kind of things a lot. These are things that we do not talk about that much back in South Korea. I think more Asian culture is more communal, culture. So we don't talk about, right of individual as much as American culture. It's all about my right. So you do not touch my right, or you do not go over beyond the rail of my right. Those kind of things. Anyway, but think about it. You choose what you are going to wear today, right? Will someone tell you what to wear? No, you choose, right? And you choose to come here this morning to worship God together. I mean, Ellie, you choose to come here, yes, right? See, this is all free will. This is something that God designed for us to have. But it actually matters. Now, a few years ago, my wife and I, when we were in South Korea, we heard about this seafood buffet. It is very expensive, but everybody is going there. We have to go there, seafood, because they have a lobster tail, abalone. I mean, you name it. All the seafood you can have. It was amazing. So we actually find a time to go there. I mean, it was the most, I think, amazing buffet and seafood buffet I ever had. I mean, it was more than rich and fulfilling. I mean, I took a picture of it. I mean, it's just, I couldn't believe what I'm taking a picture of. And these are things that I'm going to eat it, right? I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Now, what do you do after you eat main course? You have to go to dessert, right? Now, dessert is like amazing too. So when I look at dessert section, it's, oh no, I cannot have dessert. This is it, no more. But guess what? They're calling me. It looks so delicious. So I said, just one more, just one more, right? But the question is, should I have this? At that time, I didn't thought about it, so I did. And later on, I should not have. I should not have. I never so sick in my life after that experience. Now, we must realize that to make a better choice in our lives, we must admit that just because we can do something, because that's something that I want to do, that's something that I can, doesn't mean that we should do something about it, right? So Paul actually writes this in the book of 1 Corinthians. So, Ellie, would you come up here and read this verse for us, which is 1 Corinthians chapter 6,
Sure.
verse 12. Right here. I have the right. Okay.
I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything.
Can you read it one more time?
Yes. The whole thing?
Yeah, I have the right.
I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything.
Yes, thank you. All right. So thank you, Ellie. Now, I think it's really important to understand what Paul is saying. So in context, what Paul's saying is this. At that time in 1 Corinthians, the Corinth church, Paul was preaching, and they're talking about the resurrection. So on the resurrection, we will have a different body. We will have a resurrected body. We will have a body that you never knew. So everybody at that point, after that, they misunderstood that truth, and then guess what they start to do? They start to eating things that they should not eating. They should eating so many things. And then they abuse their body. Because, I'm going to have a resurrected body when Jesus comes. And one of the area was their sexuality. So they were trying to make a case that why it did not really matter what they did with their body, because they would get a new resurrected body anyway. So the body right now, I can do whatever I want to do. Because that's their aspect. But that's what Paul's saying. Of course, you have a right to do anything that you want. But not everything is beneficial. Not everything is beneficial. Which I think what Paul said is very logical. Right? Logical. You may feel like you're free to do anything, whatever you want to do, that we are actually mastered by sin when we make unwise choices. Okay? And that's why we have law, isn't it? Right? When we have laws. So, someone could, choose to drive 90 miles an hour on highway. Someone could spend so much time on Facebook to reconnect and rekindle a flame with old boyfriend or girlfriend. Someone could choose to abuse drugs and alcohol. You could choose to eat a lot of Hot Pockets. We all have choices. We all have choices. So, let me ask you this question. These are questions that you may have to think about. First question is this. What choice have you made in the last year, that given a second chance, you would change? Something that you did, it's like, that's not right anymore. I should change slowly. Second one is this. What choices do you know lie ahead of you that you need God's wisdom to navigate? There must be a lot of decisions that you need to make in 2025, and you need God's wisdom for that. What are those choices? I think through prayer, we can position ourselves to make better choices. And also, we have each other, right, to make those better choices. So, hopefully, you already have a better relationship starting this year together. Hopefully, you already start with a better priority in this year. So, as we're going through this year, think about the better choices we could make to improve your life, to closer to God, and to have a better relationship with others. So, I think there's no better time than the beginning of the year to start this making better choices, so that you could be blessed and you actually share your blessing to others. Let's pray. Lord, you know how many choices we have before us every single day. So please help us. Give us wisdom and surround us with better people to make choices